the reward of coming to Jesus would obviously be that he saved you so that you might do good works that glorify him. The why of him, you coming to Jesus is so that he can breathe life into you. You're a dead person. You're dead. You have no hope. When you come to Jesus, he fulfills those needs that you have inside of you. He created you so that you might love him. So before you come to him, you're actually unfulfilled in your destiny. You're unfulfilled in your purpose.
I like using the example in John 11, where in John 11 at Christ alone, and how he called out Lazarus from the tomb after being dead for 4 days. And he showed the impossibility of Lazarus by himself coming to Christ after making the call. And that's a picture of what happens at regeneration. When we come to God, it's out of sheer grace, and it's evidence of being born again. Because I do believe regeneration precedes faith, and so it proves that we have come to faith. And so once we realize we're saved, we can only point back to the grace of God that made it possible. And so when he says come, in the scriptures, those that do come are proving that God has done the work. You know what I mean? And once they discover that and realize that, all you can do is look up and say thank you. You can't look at yourself and say, wow, look at what I did. No one can boast. If we could boast, then God doesn't get all the glory and credit. But God gets all the glory and credit, because once God makes a call to someone to come to saving faith, and that's evidence, of course, according to James 2, you can't have faith without works. Once we see that there's evidence of it, we can just look up and say thank you. Lazarus, when he came out the tomb, he looked at Christ, and he didn't say, look at what I did. He was helpless in his state, but Christ called him out by name, gave life to him, and then that was evidenced by the way what happened afterwards, which was he was with the sisters again. He bore witness to what Jesus did, and even others saw and had a problem with it. And then the following chapter, they tried to kill Lazarus over it. The dude just got up. And so anyway, I think that our lives, once we see that there's salvation, all we can do is look up and say thank you.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Obviously earlier we talked about the two extremes, and the excuse sometimes is for a person not to repent from their sinful habits whenever they look at this phrase, come as you are. And then you have the other side of that, which is you have to be perfect before coming to Christ, right? But I think there's a balance between coming to God as you are, and then at the same time him cleaning you up so that you might be changed. I think there's a balance in between there, because when we look at the Great Commission tells us to go and make disciples, baptize them, and then teach them. So do this and then teach them to do this. So you go and get them the same way, but baptism, you go and get them so that they can be washed. And then the second part of that, which is to baptize them. I mean to teach them to observe all that I have commanded you. So you gather them, you clean them, or they become clean. And then from there, then you teach them.
Right. You
teach them to observe. You teach them to obey the things that God has commanded them to do. So come as they are, but God is going to change you, and then you're going to do things like go and make disciples. And you go from being a disciple to now, as you are a disciple, you're going and making disciples, and now it's a disciple cycle. And so teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. That's part of the Great Commission. That's a major part of it. And the Great Commission is unfulfilled unless that is happening.
And that's what we're doing too in our church. When we teach, part of teaching is correcting. It's teaching people discernment. It's really pushing people to the scriptures, being reliant on the scriptures. And so in doing that, that's why we're here today talking about this topic, because we look at our Bibles and say, hold up, we don't see that in the Bible. You know?
Mhm.
So how do we reconcile that with what Jesus is saying when he does say, come to me? You know, why is it that he says, come to me and not come as you are? So, you know what I mean? So that's the product of teaching and discernment.
Yeah,
You
go
know
to
what I mean?
Jesus. Go to Jesus.